Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojó ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Welcome, everyone, to Theoryforge Chronicles. I am your host, Phantom X, and I'm joined by Diggs. Welcome, Diggs. How's it going?
It is going pretty well.
It's just us today, and we are on episode 11, I Voted, and we are kind of actually on an off week, I guess you could say. I don't even remember what our weeks are now. But Neuro is not here, and Saga's not here either. But because of... we're in map voting, we figured we might as well talk about it because there's been quite a bit of stuff already, and it's only been going now for what?
4 or 5 days,
yeah,
depending on how you count.
So we just figured we'd go over some of it, some things that I've noticed. The first thing I guess I want to point out, we are tracking the data. I've created a program that is tracking the data, and it's tweeting out every 8 hours, sort of where the total votes are. So if anyone follows us, of course, you can always find that on the website. I think they actually pin every morning where the votes are as well, and they're in the main Discord channel. So there's other places you can look, but we are doing that as well. One thing I've noticed that I'll point out I'm going to change, I've been posting the top 5. This is all automated, but I'll be able to change it. The top 5 of each server. The way this will all work and what we're going to get into, I actually probably need to extend that to the top 10. But anyways, that's more for me to know and not for you. So, Diggs, have you been paying much attention? Have you voted?
I have not voted. I'm waiting. But I have been paying some attention every day. Well, because there's drama to pay attention to. But I did look at the maps that I thought I might be interested in, and I don't really understand the map voting. So for me, for this one, I was looking at, so Weird and Dross are the two tribes that I'm interested in. And I figured that I would want to go with the map where those tribes were near water, so on the coast, had coastal water. And, people in the kingdom seem to be interested in map H, according to the little vote that we originally got, where our king was like, just kind of indicate which map you're interested in. And at the time, I think 50 people wanted H, and that was like the highest response. But then he decided to go with map I. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to go with map I, which looks pretty good too. But I was like, I don't know why you asked if you're just going to.
Well, you need input. I mean,
I guess
everyone's going to have their wants and their needs, but they want input.
I guess it was just kind of funny to be like, hey, let me know what you want. No, I'm not going to do that. Which is fine. So and I looked at I think I for North America West is in the running. At the moment, it's got the highest
current
votes.
Top.
Yeah. And it looked to be pretty good. I think the strategy there was that there's only one tribe that does not have one tribal area that does not have, or one biome. There's only one biome that does not have coastal water on that map, I think. But you did not really care about which map. So did you vote?
No, not yet. Just waiting to see what happens.
Now that we were able to see what they look like, did you have a preference?
You're right, in that I don't care too much because I already know what I'm going to do. So as long as I can function within maintaining a county and a farm and all that, but like I've always said, I don't necessarily care so much about I need to have this certain type of person here and all that. The only thing that I kind of grumble about with the maps is of course, me being the not so much of a PvPer, are choke points. So several of the maps, and actually the one that is in the lead, the way it's shaped, there's a choke point. And yeah, that's right. I know we've neither voted. Okay. Yeah, all right. You got me. No, that's my only thing is, having this sort of choke point, how that all fits into this. I just see a lot of, I could be entirely wrong, but obviously that could create a lot of conflict. And I'm not entering into this world or this game necessarily for the conflict. I know that will be part of it. I get that, and I know I'll have to participate in that to some degree. I'm not a big PvPer, so I prefer maps that have more wide open. And I think it was Neuro, or maybe I forget who in chat had kind of mentioned, well, you can still go around as long as they're all coastal. You can still connect other ways. You don't have to go over land, which is true. But I just my preference, which carries little weight, is not so much a chokehold, just more of a regular island. But ultimately,
is that for trade?
Yeah, that would be the main.
Because it's easier to trade over land.
Yeah, trying to get from one place to another. Well, and it might not be. I don't know. Until we get in the world, we start seeing what is shipbuilding like. How easy is it going to be to transport over water? It might be easier. I don't know.
But I'm saying, was that what you were looking at when you were looking at the maps? You were saying I'd like
if I go from
less of a chokehold, so I have a wider place to go over land for trade.
If I need to go from point A to point B, I would much rather take a little bit more longer of a route that goes away from an active conflict than having to go right through the middle of active conflict.
I got you.
Ultimately, again, it's I'll be happy regardless, I hope. So I'll kind of basically vote whichever way I'm asked to. But that's my only thing.
So we have a mention of H being the best map for Selene, but I understood that C is the best map for
H for
a number of
Selene.
reasons.
Let me update my tweets here. I'm just looking. This thing sent it off at 8 o'clock. H is number 4. So if you
There's
like H.
drama going on over in Selene.
Yeah, that is something we were going to, that popped yesterday, or was it this morning?
Mm-hmm.
This morning.
I think it was yesterday.
No,
was it?
I don't remember. I think I put it in our Discord this morning. Just the big post about we were going to do something and they sprung this on us. I have no idea what actually is going on. But that's what we want to see, right? That's the whole point of a living world. That's
not for me, but okay.
What? Why is it not?
I'm all about the cooperation, not the conflict. So,
the stories.
I'm a care bearer.
Stories will be generated out of conflict. While I don't want to participate in that conflict, I do want to know about I do like the stories. You look at Eve. Eve, I always compare it to Eve. I
hate Eve. I would never step foot on Eve. I'm not going to.
I'm not going to play I'm not going to play a space fantasy either. But my point being,
no, because of the PvP, I would not. If Chronicles is going to be like Eve in terms of PvP, I'm not participating. But
my point being. Some of those, while I do not have any desire to play Eve, I really enjoy the stories that come out of that. PC Gamer every once in a while will put in some stories that are just amazing, and it's all driven by player conflict. So I believe personally that some of the bigger stories of the world or the environment will be driven by conflict. Cooperation doesn't really create much story.
Sure, it does. But
anyways, we kind of went off topic. But yes, there was a post, and I can put it. Well, I don't really want to. Actually, I'm not going to post it in chat because I do not want to encourage any interaction unless you are actually directly involved. Which, if you are, you've already seen the post. So we were not laughing about it, but it was something I posted because this is what you expect to see, and I think this will continue to happen. I've been saying the second round gets really interesting because when you're looking at all of this, we're saying top 5. Well, if the way things are right now, I think this morning they said there was only 25% of the Yeah, 25% of people have voted and 33% of all influence. So there's still a lot more to go, basically. But as of this morning, every server got its top two choices. But even when you added up the percentages for those top two choices, they were all, except one was 51% in total. The rest were below 50%. So you still have this more of a, this remaining plus 50% that did not vote, at least yet, for those maps. It will get very interesting when we hit the second round as to where all of these votes go to. Because there's no clear, this is our server has, 60% of the people have voted for this in the first round. It's not even close to that. 30-ish percentages, I think 30 to 35%, somewhere in there is what most of the top, and actually for us, for Angelica, it's like 21% is the top. It's not even the top, there's not even 25% of the people yet have voted for it. So that can all change. This is all early. There's still, 7 days left, I think, just under 7 days.
Yeah.
A lot of outstanding votes. But the second round is where it's going to get very interesting, especially when people don't know where the votes are going. At least right now, you can look at the graph in some other places, and you have a pretty good sense. Like I said, Caspian is every morning posting kind of the order that things have fought, where they are currently. So you have an idea, right, of, okay, that's not the map I want. Got to rally some people to get the one I want up a little bit higher. But kingdoms have all been making their choices. What I find curious is, I've seen at least several. It seems like several kingdoms have said this is what the rulers, this is what I prefer. Yet we still only have 25% of the people that have voted. So I don't know if that's more, there's a lot of people within these kingdoms that just haven't, for whatever reason, voted. They're not as frequently visiting the website. I don't know if that means there's actually quite a large percentage of players that we don't know about that are that have somehow invested in the game that are not part of kingdoms. That could very well be a part of this. There could actually be quite a few people we just don't know about that have not taken the time to join anything yet. So it'll be really interesting once we start getting towards the last day or two of open vote, kind of where everything's at.
Yeah, I mean, I know where my king wants to vote, but I'm still waiting. I guess I should check and triple check that the Dukes are following along. But it would be really fascinating to see, to correlate between who's voted and who is cured or plagued from the last event, just to see who is active and non-active, how that's going. It seems to me early for drama, but lots of people are still waiting. I do think round 2 will be fun. And who's going to betray whom? And it's just a fascinating thing, because even in the real world, we already have, how alliances are maintained and broken, and individuals are like, yeah, I'll go along with this for now, but then they end up, breaking their treaty or changing their minds or stabbing people in the back. And that's in real life. And I think internet is much more ruthless than real life. So.
Well, in the second round, I mean, how you aren't going to know unless there's a spy within a kingdom that says, I mean, if you want to really be secretive somehow as a kingdom, you're going to have to keep your choice away from everyone that's not in your kingdom. I don't think that's possible with Discord anymore, but there's just that element of, okay, you've said you're going to do this. Did you actually do it? I have no way of checking. So I don't even know if the fireworks will occur in the second round, but it's probably going to be once they announce what the actual final maps are. We'll see where if everyone's happy. Again, ultimately, for me, I'll be generally as long as there's farmland, that I can help manage as a county. I continue to just as a count just see myself as whatever I'm asked to do is sort of what I'll do. I don't necessarily have any big strong plans. So with that, I don't have really a care necessarily of coastal, inland. It doesn't bother, I just don't want to have to go through conflict to get where I need to go.
Yeah, we should see if we can at least get maybe a Duke on next week, just so somebody who actually might care can let us know what they're thinking in terms of the results. Because I think I don't really, I used some criteria for what I think I might like to vote on, but I don't really care. But I think the Dukes and the Kings care more, and I think even more so about how well people are honoring their word in terms of alliances. So
it's fascinating, right? I mean, that's just we're not even into the game yet, and it's just that post, just like, okay, this is what I'm wanting to see. I hate to say wanting to see conflict, but I truly believe that is just what it's going to generate talk and stories and the things that I want to play the game for. No, did you hear about so and so? Because
hear how Phantom X lost his mayorship.
What do you mean mayorship?
County? I don't remember what you got. What you get? County?
Yes.
Yeah.
Get it right.
Well, I don't care.
That is. I mean, that's a good point, because that with this whole on Selene, if one kingdom betrays the rest, and this post goes on the forums, what happens during exposition? Once we get to right up to launch, how many people turn on them, right? Because they got, they didn't do what they said. It's just fascinating. I just can't wait to see what happens. Yeah, that's a good point. Anyone that is watching or watches this later or listens on podcasts, certainly we, over this week and probably actually the next couple of weeks, since we'll be still having second round of map voting, we certainly would love to have people on that want to kind of chat about the maps, what they think, what they would like to see. Just ping one of us, let us know. We would love to have some more folks on. We wish we could have had a couple on tonight, but
tweet at us.
We kind of did this short notice, so.
It just seemed yesterday, I think it was like so. People have opinions, so.
I've been digging a lot into the statistics, which is sort of fascinating to me too, which is where there's a lot to talk about. The process you mentioned, you don't even know how map voting works. I guess we could even go over that again. We did last week, but we could do it again. The way things are now, you are voting with, we'll leave it as one vote, and that you get to invest your IP. So the current way, the totals or the results are being tallied, and what you see in graph form are total IP. Now you can split that. If you want to have 2 votes, 3 votes, 4 votes, you can cut that in half and kind of reshift it around. But what we're looking at, the percentages at this point, are IP. What will happen, just I guess continue that on. So what will happen going into the second round, and anyone in chat, if I get this wrong, let me know. It's a round robin sort of system. So they're going to basically, once we're finished, they're going to take the 3. I guess I should point out the 4th server, Oceanus, is not participating in this because they have their own 5 that they're going to get to choose from in the second round. That is why they do not have an icon on our screen right now. It's not because I'm trying to leave anyone out. They're just not part of the voting right now. But they'll get to these 3 and do a round robin. So essentially look at, what's the highest percentage, who got the most votes, and you assuming they're not, each server is different, each one will get their top votes, and then they'll go to the second, and then they'll go to the third and the fourth and the fifth. And what will happen is, let's say Angelica has I and M, and Luna has N and I. Well, if I was already taken, and Luna will then have to go to their next one down until they get to a spot where there's not a map that's been taken, and that will become their second top 5. So that's how it will progress kind of all the way through. That is, again, why I'm going to switch our graphics from a top 5 to a top 10, because what I'm currently showing is not actually how things will eventually be, because there'll be a round robin process. If there's a tie, that will then go to what they're saying is an absolute vote. This is actually something I wanted to talk about too, because I'm a little either clarification or I'm a little confused too. It will go to a tiebreaker, which becomes absolute votes. So IP is taken out of the equation, and it's just how many people voted. And I think I saw a quote. Let me see if I can figure out where I took that. I think that what they're trying to basically do is make sure everyone's happy. So the rationale there is that in a tiebreaker, if one server, let's say NA West, has like twice more people or twice more IP than a EU server, that way it's not set up to where the server with the most IP just gets to steamroll through everything. That's essentially why it's going to an absolute vote. What I'm kind of confused in what we've been talking about in our Discord chat, I can see why they're doing that, but there's still kind of an issue, right? So there's a server population issue. So if you're going to the absolute vote, well, let's say NA West has 5,000. I'm just throwing out random numbers. I have no idea what actual server populations are. Let's just say NA West has 5,000 people on the server. EU has, say, half that, 2,500. Well, NA West actually has twice as many votes. So when you're talking about absolute votes, they actually have twice as many to begin with. So they could win that tiebreaker just by the fact that they have more people, which to me doesn't necessarily seem fair. It's probably better than it is for IP, because then you're more playing into who spent the most money. But even with this sort of system, so I guess what I would like to see, or what I think makes more sense to me at least, is to try to normalize the data. So say, again, I'll throw out some random numbers. Say Angelica has 2,000 people and Celine has 1,000 people, so you can normalize that. So you can say how many votes per 1,000 people, and that gives you a comparative number, which I think is more fair than just saying absolute votes, because absolute votes will still be impacted by server populations. That's something we've talked about in chat. I think that's something they've gone over in the official Discord as well. I don't know. It's just something I would say to maybe look at. It makes more sense to sort of normalize the data than just take absolute votes, because you're still going to have some sort of bias just based on server population.
Serpentius has a response. You want to read that?
What do you mean? Which part?
On the map.
You can read it. I've not been reading. I've been talking.
I know, but you should read it since he's talking to you.
Well, now I got to read it. You've been reading. Okay. Now I got a break.
Yeah.
What do you want? Which part are we?
I'll read it. You listen. Serpentius says it's based on number of people vote. So there are 5 maps per server. So it isn't as if there's only one they're all competing for. Most of what they want, they should get, if not all.
Yeah, but that's. Yeah, I mean, even if you have twice as many votes, they're still going to be spread amongst the servers. I get that, but you're still going to, if you have, I understand that, but you're still going to have more votes in the pool. So, when it comes just to absolute votes, the percentages could still be the same, and you ultimately have more votes because you just had more people. So and I've thought that through. That. There are 20 maps to choose from, but you're still starting out with more votes. So,
yeah, I didn't really understand why it seems like it's still the tiebreaker isn't much different than the original vote to me, but
it removes the idea of who's put in the most money, kind of. And it's just a server pop, basically. So you're just removing the multiply by IP factor. So it's better than that. But I still think considering the idea of normalizing the data to even the server numbers and see what percentage voted out of that. But it's better than just doing with IP. And I should point out while we're talking about it, I did actually, based off my data along with Caspian's data this morning. He posted at 10:17. My data collection was at 10:16. So I think they're pretty accurate or close together for that time frame. And when I went through all that in the round robin process with mine, there was actually only one tie. So it's not. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a very common occurrence. Out of all 5 maps for each server, there was only one instance of a tie. So I don't know that it will ultimately be that big of an issue. And the reality is too, the top 2. Currently, again, we still have a lot of ways to go. Each server's top 2 they get is how it is playing out right now. So
yeah. So that seems pretty good. Serpentia says he's going to mention it to Caspian. So,
well, it's just the percentages are the percentages. You're just starting out with more votes. So while the percentages might come out equal, right? 21% for Angelica and 21% for EU. Okay, let's look at the actual number of votes. Well, if one server has twice as many, they're going to have twice as many votes. It just happens the percentages ended up being the same. Percentages don't necessarily say much about total population.
Yeah. But we're not competing for the same map space anyway, it seems like. Server-wise.
No, I mean, once you get, not the top two. That they, at this point, again, that could all change. But the top two, which presumably are going to be moving on in the second round, those top two will be the top choices. At this stage, everyone gets their top two. And then you really start getting into... I don't know if I still have it. It's actually kind of interesting. Actually, let me see if I can find it on my Discord. I've done a lot of the statistics. I like looking at statistics, so it's just interesting to me. Do you have anything to say while I'm looking through this?
Yeah, because Neuro had done a bit of a rant. He had some ideas about...
he didn't like any of the maps, really, did he?
Yeah, so it was interesting because among the list that he has that he doesn't like is map I, which is at the top for North American West. So he says there's a bunch that I think are just bad news. A, G, I, N, Q, and S all have a single biome choke point in the middle of the continent. O is on the fringe of that. So I guess he doesn't like that. But
same thinking as me.
Yeah, but I is right at the top for North America, for Angelica. So that's surprising. H, J, K, L, M, P, R, and T are the only ones I'd consider just based on that, but there's problems within those two, specifically single biomes hanging off of the northern or southern edge with connection to one other biome. Let's see. J's taiga, L's tropical rainforest, and R's lower mountains is close. So let's see. HKMPT. H kingdoms 1 and 6 get screwed. 2 biomes and 1 has only 1 neighbor. On K and M, it's fairly soggy in the south, and 5 kind of cuts 6 off from the rest. P has similar issues. On T, kingdoms 2 and 6 get screwed. Small, hanging off the ends, and 1 neighbor. Meanwhile, Kingdom 4 gets massive advantage and gets to be at the center of it all. Is T at the top on any list?
That's
interesting.
It is. It is on the lower 5 of Luna.
But okay, so either way, 1 to 2 kingdoms are going to be cut off. H is the only one that is fair to Kingdom 6, but 1 gets the shaft. P seems the most fair. Anybody, is P at the top?
P, nope.
6 has 3 neighboring.
A lot of people disagree with him, so apparently.
I'm guessing, yeah. 1 has a short trek through 2 to reach 3 in Central 3. And 4, most biomes are comparably sized in landmass to the other kingdoms aside from 6. I feel like the least kingdoms get screwed this way, so maybe P is his favorite.
I feel like there's some that are meant to be screwed. I mean, that's the point of this. Like, everyone's going to get the best.
Sure, but I'm surprised that people aren't. There doesn't seem to be a battle over that. Like,
Well, that might come next round.
True. I don't know, but people seem, like I said, he thinks that I is bad news, and
here we are sitting at the top.
Yeah. So.
Well, in the way, when we get to the second round, this is what I was going to mention. The way this round robin system works is actually kind of interesting. It's great that everyone has their top 2, but it's when you start actually breaking down from that point, because everyone's going to have a unique map. So you're removing, I guess I didn't say that. So the reason for the round robin is once a map is selected, that is removed from the choices, and then you move on down. So like with Angelica, got their first number 1 and number 2, and then what completed the top 5 after round robin at this stage was their number 6, number 8, and number 9 ranked maps. So that's interesting to me that these are some of the lower. And then you have Luna currently; they get their number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then their number 10 rounds out their 5th. And then I guess I can finish. Well, I don't have Celine's here, but anyways, it's the same sort of idea that you have your top 2, and then you're going to end up being filled with some pretty lower in the totem pole maps. So that's where the second round and voting and how everyone decides to do that, especially if we get to the second round and the top 1 or 2 maps do not have over 50% of the vote. That's going to be really interesting because there could potentially be some kingdoms that are very upset, if they're sitting at 40% and ultimately the other 60% said, no, I didn't vote for it the first time. I'm not going to vote for it now. And they don't get it. It's just could be interesting. So,
but it's important to vote. Your vote counts.
I know. Now I feel like an idiot for not
We just haven't voted yet.
You asked the question. You should not have asked that question.
Voting day is not here yet. It's not like voting has passed and we didn't vote. We're going to vote. I'm going to vote. Just taking my time to see what everybody else is doing.
So,
let's see. I have a county. Salazar Jack says, I have a county but have not selected kingdom yet. My choices are all based on maps with significant peninsula island features. Okay. My favorite maps on Angelica are N, L, and E. Was L kind of...
L's number 2 currently.
Yeah. And is N where's N? Why does it seem like N was... so it's like I, L, H?
I have to look at 2 different places because I have what are the actual top 5 if you're just going by percentage, but then that, again, is not the same necessarily as what the round robin says. So as far as the top 5 currently, before round robin, it's I, L, H, N, and A.
Yeah.
And then this morning after round robin, it was I, L, R, S, and K. So and that could all change.
So he's got some in there. And he thinks Salazar Jack thinks he's going to try to end up somewhere in the north. Or he says, I will end up somewhere in the north. So
map N has 7%. Map L has 15. I do not have on me what map E has. I could find out. So,
yeah.
It's just a lot of these are broken into such smaller. It's just going to be super interesting to see where all the remainder of the votes go. Because you get to the second round, you're going to want to have you're going to want your vote to matter. So if it's clear, yours had 4% of the overall vote, that you're not going to get that map. Do you just still stick with it, or do you go ahead and vote with the majority? Let me see here. So what was I looking for? E has 2%. So
yeah. But N and L, those are pretty good. Well, L especially. L is second. So what else was there we were going to touch on? I think we pretty much hit everything.
Yeah, we weren't necessarily going to go for a full hour tonight. We just felt like now that we're in, and especially when we don't have all of our folks here. I don't know if there's anything anybody in chat wants to kind of have us talk about or wants to mention. This can be much more of an interactive process at this point. I just wanted to kind of go over the process and where some of the numbers were. What we're seeing right now. I was really curious about this whole tiebreaker thing. I still, again, trying to just provide constructive criticism. I do think that could still be done better. I don't know that it will change because it looks like that's been kind of what's been set up since the beginning. It certainly, again, is better than IP voting. So, a map with an inland sea. I do not remember what map that was.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, so I think we had Aina Yala said that the write-ups, what people have been saying has been pretty interesting. H has the inland sea. I guess writing about people's opinions and what they're interested in, and I'm sure there's more.
Oh, I see it here.
There's more drama to read about, and yeah, so I guess some of the conflict is happening already, and I'll be interested to see whether those responses, the relationships that are built or broken during map loading stick around to the live game. Will we remember who betrayed whom and the treachery?
I mean, I guess it'll all come down to how much does this actually influence things. I know the thought is that it's going to influence things quite a bit. But I mean, we don't know if that's going to be the case. I mean, certainly if there's someone who feels completely screwed, they're going to remember, or at least what they think happened.
Yeah, I wonder if that's going to be a real rivalry. Like, you launch into the game and there's an immediate war because.
I think that's going to happen anyways, probably.
But I'm saying specifically because of this, you betrayed us. Now we get a chance to retaliate.
I mean, that maybe again. I think that certainly immediately after, if they're unhappy people, they will be unhappy. Once we actually get to exposition and people get to actually get into the world and see what it's like, I mean, if everyone ends up being generally happy, I don't know how much that will persist as a reason for conflict. I mean, it very well could. I certainly hope there's conflict. Again, I don't want it at my doorstep, but I don't want to be the first count out. That could happen. But so which servers are we going to be on? I think we're both on Angelica, so NA West, because I'm actually out east, but obviously, and so is SOG, but most of the people we know and play with are out west. So that is where we will be. Which is interesting also, again, to point out, that's the one server that does not have like a clear big lead at this point as far as a map. It does obviously have a number one, but it's 21% versus the others are like 30, 35%. So, the other thing I was curious about, and I don't know that anyone would do this with voting. It appears, I will be on Angelica, but it appears I could actually cast votes on Celine, or I could cast votes on Luna. I don't know why I would do that, but I find that interesting as well. If you have a lot of IP, you're going to get what you want. Do you try to actually throw off? You're not. Now it's a different server, so you're not going to interact, right? There's not going to necessarily be that competing in game. Out of Angelica's 5, which would I prefer? I just would prefer anything without a choke point. Now that could change if it becomes clearly. That could change if there's an easy way of transporting around that. So again, certainly if transporting goods by way of boat becomes not necessarily a terrible idea or proposition, I guess I could change my opinion on a choke point. But if I'm trying to get from A to B, I would prefer that not to be one area I have to go to. I would like to have a secondary route if I could, if there was some sort of ongoing conflict. Now, it could very well be that I don't have a reason to go across that choke. I don't know, again, how things will play out. Just as right now, the way my thought is, though, is I would prefer a map without a choke point. But like I said, I'll be happy regardless. I'm just going to basically cast how the kingdom asks to cast, and that's why I belong to it. I'm there just to kind of be a cog in the wheel, or however that saying goes. So.
And it would be fascinating to see who is able to hold that choke point for long. Because it seems like just the commerce, that would be someplace that you would want to have control.
Well, in my opinion, I don't have any insider knowledge. Is obviously these 20 maps have to be pre-selected, right? They're pre-selected by the development team as what they think could be useful, and then we get to choose. If you look at most of them, there's some sort of choke point. It might not be just one biome, but it could be two, but most of them have a choke point. I think that's by design because that will produce conflict. And I think that conflict is what will drive a lot of this game. So I think that's by design, but I would much rather have two different areas to go through than one.
Right. But so I'm saying, so if there is just one, is one kingdom going to be able to hold that, or is that going to be, I just wonder how that'll work, or maybe that's just going to be a fairly neutral place so that trade can happen. I don't know.
I guess it depends on who owns it and who wants it, right?
Well, who can maintain it? That's what I'm saying.
Well, whoever wants it the most. If you are the kingdom that has that choke point, again, it's theory crafting, but does that change like what you're going to do, right? Were you going to focus in one area first, but no, now I got to actually build up defenses. I can't necessarily focus on growing research and all this other stuff because I need to shore up this area because people are going to want to come through there. Do I tax people? Do I say, okay, you're coming through, you got to pay me some money? How much do I do that? Do I do it just enough to make some money and not make people mad? Do I rob them blind? Yeah, there's just a lot of interesting scenarios that could come from this. I would personally not want to have that choke point because that's not what I want. I don't want to be in a constant battle, and that potentially could be what that becomes. Now, if you're a benevolent ruler, you let people through, without too much of a problem, then it probably won't be a problem.
Serpentius is wondering what people think of the fact that we have the opportunity to participate in this type of event.
I think it's great. I mean, it's certainly not something we get to normally do. And I think that's generally what I feel like everyone else feels. I mean, it's not like we get to craft it from scratch, but again, it's selecting from 20. But I think everyone likes. Again, I think two things. One, this keeps us involved, which in any long developmental cycle, you want to keep your community as involved as you can, and this is a necessity anyway. So it's not like it's another event that they had to create, right? They had to create the map anyway, so why not involve the community to do it? So that's one thing, and then two, it also gets us to start feeling like we're this is kind of becoming our world. We get to see where we will be existing within our player characters, and we get to somewhat choose that. So I think it's been a great idea. I mean, I certainly wish if this becomes a success that future other games would consider the idea of letting their players have more choice in the world they inhabit.
I think I'm more partial to the Ashes of Creation method of just going in, and once we get in, we'll try and make it to wherever we can get to and start building up our stuff directly in the game. I don't have too much of an attachment to this map voting, and I don't think that I feel like I have enough of a direct control to get what I want. I don't know that I really feel like my vote makes much of a difference. So I don't care, but
you're one of those people.
But
I didn't vote because it didn't matter.
I think I'm going to vote. I just don't think it's going to have an effect. But it is kind of fascinating to see the alliances break apart, and you said you were going to do this, and we thought we were going to do this, but now we decided to do that. That is fascinating to watch. It's very amusing. And I think I'm shocked by how much drama there already is even before we're in the game. Because for me, I would wait until I get in the game for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, that speaks to the community involvement. That speaks to the environment. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I actually mean this in a positive way. That speaks to the environment that I think the studio has created to allow people the chance to create all this drama and alliance and actually have it mean something. It's not
right, but for me, it doesn't mean anything until we're actually in the game and can right? So I'm just surprised.
I mean, until you get in there and you don't have anyone to protect you because you were a loner the whole time. It might not be that rough. I don't know, but
yeah, I don't know. I want more hands-on, I guess. But yeah. And so far, this is much less frustrating than Searing Plague.
So there's another question. It says, Diggs, are you saying that even just this map vote has altered the destiny of some kingdoms and alliances?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the betrayal and the treachery that seems to be coming up is going to last into the game. Often one of the things that I did not like about playing EQ when I first started is, and I kind of don't like it about WoW even, and when you have those pre-established sides fighting against each other. So it's just, I hate orcs because, you're part of the Horde and I'm Alliance. And that's the only reason why, because somebody else told you you're supposed to hate those people. That always kind of bugs me. So it will be fun if people are fighting battles because they remember Arcadia betraying the Alliance treaty that they had set up. We were going to wait 4 days before we voted, and then you voted without us. Rawr! Gotta kill you.
I fully expect it to continue on. I do think these sorts of events will change alliances. The biggest reason I think that, well, there's probably multiple, but this is really a unique game and setting in that you can lose everything. And these are, well, I guess I shouldn't, Eve's sort of, again, similar. You can spend a lot of money and lose it overnight on in-game stuff. This is sort of a similar thing, though, where you can lose everything you've invested in. So I think that naturally and understandably creates more of a protective factor of, okay, you betrayed me. I need to watch you closer because I actually have skin in the game. There are things I can actually lose and not get back versus, World of Warcraft. Yeah, we PvP, you kill me, and I just pop right back up, and I'm on my way. There's just a very different set of interactions here that I think will, people will probably start off with some other groups they don't want to be around. Does that turn into actual physical conflict and battles? I don't know. I guess that depends on how everyone's kingdoms end up being positioned. And that will be even more fascinating is once we get into selection of kingdoms, how that all works. I think that's where you will also see a lot of fracturing.
And I do think that so I don't like the PvP. I would not like being attacked because somebody that I don't know comes up to me and says, "Oh, you're an elf and elves killed my family, so now I attack all elves. I kill all elves whenever I come across them." I would be more interested and more invested and feel more immersed to be out and be attacked because I'm part of Arcadia and people are saying, "Hey, you betrayed us." And I know I was part of Arcadia and people think that, and that was something that, my culture kingdom actually did do, and people have feelings about how we went about that. I would feel better about that battle than I might have to go, try and overthrow my government too. But hey, it wasn't my fault.
Well, that post, the one thing, again, I don't know anybody necessarily in it. I don't really care, what happens because it's not my server. But I found it fascinating that this early on, and maybe it's because people don't believe that these conflicts will persist. But I found it fascinating that and correct me again if I'm wrong about this, that 1 out of the 5. So you kind of turn on or somehow turned through this post on every other kingdom on your server. Like, how do you expect that to end well for you?
But I don't think they saw it that way. It sounded
I don't
to me
know.
like
that's maybe I read it wrong, but it's just those sorts of interactions that I think are going to be very, very interesting to follow.
Well, and that, but right, I'm agreeing and adding on that what's fascinating about that is that villains typically don't think of themselves as villains. And that's what we're seeing in this response is, hey, we support what we did. We think we went along with the treaty as we agreed to, and then we saw it was going to be this way, and so we just went ahead and voted now. But we thought that, it was fine, and you guys will be fine, and it's all good. Everybody else might not agree with them, but
and there's another comment in there, and I apologize for whatever reason. Twitch has your name in like this neon green, and I can't read it from where I'm sitting. But it says independence dropping into other people's domains during land selection is going to lead to a lot of feuds. That is an interesting point. We kind of talked about that earlier. Is there's this again? I know there's 7 days, but there's been for people who are heavily involved. There have already been decisions made. And, it's been a very active community, and there are still 75% of the votes somewhere. That's a lot of votes. And so, I wonder how much of that are people who are not affiliated. And it might, one, do they care enough to actually come and do this? It might be that they don't. So, we might not even get to 50% of eligible people voting. Who knows? Maybe it's like real life. But I think there's actually a lot of people not affiliated with these kingdoms necessarily that are still out there kind of watching. Because as I sort of track these numbers, and I have been for the last day or two, there are some big shifts, and it's clear. Somebody says, we're voting for map C, and all of a sudden map C jumps. But there are a lot of tiny little shifts. There are a lot of, I'm almost tracking hour to hour. And there are even in hour chunks, there are changes, small changes that start to add up over time. And I think a lot of that might just be people who are not affiliated with a specific kingdom. So it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see where it goes. And again, that takes me back to the second round. If the majority of the people actually are not belonging to a kingdom, how do you win over enough of them to get the map you want? If you can only get 40% of your kingdom to, is only 40% of the population, how do you get those other people over?
Yeah. How many people are not paying attention to what their kingdoms want as well? And how even if they are affiliated, because I pay more attention, I think, to the duchy than I do the kingdom, and really not even the duchy. More the what do we have? The duchy, the barony. More the barony than I do the duchy or the kingdom. So.
Well, and I think most kingdoms too are saying, "Look, this is what we prefer. You are not bound at this stage to do it." So that might be why, again, there's a lot of these smaller things that pop up, and maybe it's people not really paying attention to the graphs below. They're just looking at a map and saying, "Hey, I'll pick that one," not seeing that if they scroll down a little bit, that map has a tiny, tiny bit and is probably not going to be one of those top fives. Now with round robin, it could be. Like I said, if you actually can get into the top 10. And we keep talking about top 5, but if you can get your map into the top 10 at least, you actually have. Now, the closer you get to that top 5, the better. But from what I've been seeing, it's really within that top 10. You have some sort of chance of at least being a top 5 at the end of round robin. So that doesn't necessarily mean second round you're going to get much more. I don't know why a map that got 6% of your vote the first round is going to get the majority of the vote the second round. But it'll be interesting.
Kicksuni was able to change the color of their title. That's interesting. There's always the tribe-centric voting block. Yeah, they're probably going to be more significant in round 2. I can see that.
Anybody that's joined us Sorry, you want to say anything?
No, Salazar Jack was just saying that Soulbound Studios tweeted out the Twitch stream, and they're glad that they learned about us.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, join us. We typically will do this every 2 weeks. Like I said, probably during this whole map voting block, we'll probably at least try to fit in every week. I don't know that the off weeks will necessarily be an hour. We've now got an hour, but we certainly during this time, just because it's a very important time, we'll be trying to do as much as we can. And that brings me to what I was going to also, I had said earlier, and then for anyone that's joined us later that didn't hear me, we certainly would love to. We have a tradition and a history, and we enjoy bringing community members on here, not just off the four of us. We love having someone else here to talk. We probably have room. Sog's not going to probably be with us for a little while, so we actually have a 5-cam layout, so we could probably make room for 2 folks, really each show during map voting. So if you have anything interesting you want to talk about, or if you have if you know a Baron or a Duke or another Count or even a King, if anyone was interested in sort of just talking about map voting, certainly next week we will be right at the end.
Of round 1.
Yeah, actually, we'll be
beginning at round 2, actually.
I can't remember. Actually, by the time we go live next week, this round will have ended, so we will have the final tally of where we're at. So it'll be a lot to talk about next week. So certainly, if anybody wants to join us, we love having other people on to not just join us in conversation, but also sort of give a pitch to what why you play and what you're involved in and that sort of thing. So we are not certainly not bound to one kingdom or anything like that. We love to bring everyone on. So just reach out to us, Discord, YouTube, Twitter, whatever. Let us know if you're interested in joining us. We are at the end, and I think we've touched on everything we wanted to and more. So we are super, I know I am, I guess I can't speak for you, but I'm super excited to see how this all plays out. I'm really excited. Normally I hate drama, but when we're talking about a game that is, again, for me, I think all of the great stories that are going to come out of this game are going to be driven by conflict. This is a fun time for me to see this happen. So, yeah. So did you have any other final words, parting words?
Nope. We're all good.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this sort of spontaneous stream. We will be back next week. Again, we have 2 spots available, so if anybody wants to chat with us, and we will be right at we will have the final total at that point. And so a lot to talk about, I am sure. So thanks for joining us, and everyone have a great weekend, and we will see you in a week. See you.
Ciao.